Actual test.
You will hear a number of different recordings, and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions. Also, there will be a chance to check your answers at the end. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 sections. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to fill in your responses on an answer sheet. Now turn to Section 1. Section 1. You will hear a conversation between a convention centre agent and a customer about hiring a venue. First, you have some time to read through questions 1 to 4. You will see that there is an example that has been done for you. On this occasion only, the conversation which this example refers to will be played first.
Hello, this is the Worthington Convention Centre. Can I help you?
Hi there, my name is Samantha Harris, and I'm calling from Franklin Insurance. Yes, I wanted to ask about hiring a venue for a conference in June. We are expecting about 60 participants. Have you got anything for that number?
The woman says that she wanted to ask about hiring a venue for a conference in June. So, conference has been written in the space. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because the recording will not be played again. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 4.
Hello, this is the Worthington Convention Centre. Can I help you?
Hi there, my name is Samantha Harris, and I'm calling from Franklin Insurance. Yes, I wanted to ask about hiring a venue for a conference in June. We are expecting about 60 participants. Have you got anything for that number?
Yes, we have the Wentworth Auditorium. It is 100 square metres, so that will hold all of you. Oh, and the Raleigh Auditorium would also work. It is 80 square metres, which still is more than enough.
Is that free on the 12th of June?
Let me check. Yes it is.
Got it. And what was the name of that one again?
The Raleigh Auditorium. That's R-A-L-E-I-G-H.
Great. And how much is that?
For a full day, the price is £480, but a half day is £250. Costs are slightly higher for Saturdays and Sundays. If you book a full day, you can use the auditorium from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m.
OK, we'll only need it from 9 a.m. to about 7 p.m. And what about meals? I was told that the centre has dining facilities. We will probably need lunches for everyone.
Yes, we have a good variety of menu options. We can cater meals especially for your group at £15 per person. And our chefs can also prepare special meals, vegetarian, low-fat, low-sugar and so on, for £18 apiece. Soft drinks, juice, coffee and tea are included and can be requested from our waiters. And everything is served in Miller Hall, our dining area. Oh, and if you want, we can also do buffet-style service.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you can read through questions 5 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 5 to 10.
Okay, that's good to know. Now, there are a couple of things we will need for the conference. We'll need some audiovisual equipment, including a projector, 6 microphones, and a sound system.
We can supply the microphones and sound system at no extra cost, but we don't have a projector at the moment, so you will have to supply that yourself. However, we do have a full-time staff member who deals with setup and equipment.
Great. Oh, and does your facility offer internet access?
Certainly. A password is needed to log on, and it is free for all guests attending events. We change it daily for security reasons, but you can ask someone at the front desk for it and notify everyone else. But our staff will only give the password to those wearing their visitor passes.
Right, that's good to know.
How will your guests be traveling to the conference?
Most of them will be flying in from other locations, but there will be some guests that are driving. I'm not exactly sure how many yet, but I'm guessing a maximum of 20.
Well, then I recommend advance booking of the parking spaces, as they can get full quickly. We charge just £5 per day, and I can reserve as many spaces as you need. We also have a taxi service we work with. They can provide a shuttle bus from the airport that morning if you'd like, which would be £30 an hour.
Okay, let me get back to you on that. Is there anything else I should bear in mind at this point?
Let's see. Oh, will some of your guests need accommodation? We have a business partnership with Hotel Grand Regina located across the street. Those attending events at the convention centre get discounted rates. They offer different types of rooms, so prices will vary. You've just missed their spring discount, which was 15% off, but they still offer 10% off for people using our facility. It's quite a nice place, and of course very conveniently located.
Oh, really? I'll have to let everyone attending know about that deal.
One more thing. Our staff will take care of clean-up and putting everything away, but we ask that guests discard their trash and recyclables in the bins which are outside of the auditorium. And are you planning to hang up any banners or signs?
Yes, there are some posters we would want to put up.
That's fine. You can hang up what you want. But we just ask that you take them down once your event is concluded. We would like to have everything removed from the hall when you leave.
That won't be a problem. Thanks so much for the information. I have to discuss this with my boss first, but everything sounds perfect. I'll let you know by tomorrow afternoon if we'd like to make the booking.
That is the end of section 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 2. Section 2. You will hear a talk given by a guide about an Asian ceramics exhibition. First, you have some time to read through questions 11 to 16. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 16.
Thank you all for coming to Birmingham's very first exhibition of Asian ceramics and pottery. There is a lot to see today, so I will quickly give you an explanation of what we have in store, and then I will lead you through the exhibition. So, we have separated the exhibit space into 3 main areas, with pieces from various eras on loan from museums across the Asian continent. In each area, we will stop and I'll give you an explanation of some of the items on display. In addition, we have 2 areas for interactive displays. The first is near the exhibit hall's main entrance and is where you can observe expert potters crafting vases or other vessels using traditional equipment. You can also go there at 2 p.m. to try creating a small ceramic cup or bowl for yourself during our interactive activity. The second interactive display is situated in the rear of the hall next to our snack bar. There, you can paint and glaze your own teacup with the help of ceramic experts. These activities will not be part of our tour, but are things you can do afterwards. First, we will head to the Korean ceramics area. Many believe that some of the more technical aspects of Asian ceramics originated in China or Japan. But historically, Korean potters were renowned within the region as master ceramic artists. We have a range of stunning pieces from Korea, including some beautiful celadon vases, which are around 1,000 years old, some lovely porcelain wine jars from the Joseon dynasty, and some small household pieces from the Goryeo dynasty, which are notable for their lovely bamboo patterns. We also have a small exhibit of exceptional pieces on loan from museums in Korea, so make sure to see those too. Next, we will head to the Japanese exhibit. We have samples from many major periods, including some glazed stoneware and earthenware cups. There are also several examples of Japanese banquet sets from different periods of the country's history, which were renowned in Asia for centuries. And if you register for the audio guide, you can hear about the influence of trade on Japan's pottery and how foreign influences were translated into ancient Japanese artistic style. Now, following the Japanese exhibit, we will come to the largest exhibit at this exhibition, the one featuring objects from China. We have a larger number of pieces in this exhibit than in any other, as China was the most influential nation in ancient ceramic commerce. It was able to manufacture ceramics on a large scale using techniques unknown to its competitors. We have some fantastic works, including a Ming Dynasty vase, which is a quite well-known piece, as it was an actual possession of the emperor.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you can read through questions 17 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 17 to 20.
To end our tour, we will check out an exhibit of ceramics from contemporary masters of the art. Works from more than 20 artists will be on display and available for purchase. Included will be an assortment of vases and other decorative vessels from renowned potter Kenichi Takagawa. Famous for his modern interpretation of traditional Japanese designs, Mr. Takagawa will have dozens of items on display and for sale. He has developed a global reputation for his bright, hand-painted floral designs. Mr. Takagawa's works always sell quickly. Also, traditional serving dishes, plates and bowls from Korean ceramicist Min Hee-jung will be exhibited and available for purchase. Using traditional green glaze, Ms. Jung's dishes are very sought after around the globe. Decorated in traditional Korean motifs of cranes and clouds, her dishes are very popular with visitors. And then there will also be a large selection of ceramic works from Lillian Wong from Hong Kong. The ceramics for sale from her include an assortment of traditional Chinese teapots and teacups. Known for their brilliant blue and white patterned glazes, Ms. Wong's ceramics have been showcased in art capitals around the world. And there will be a variety of different objects for sale from other ceramicists from around Asia. In addition, we also have numerous ceramic sculptures on display in the lobby from Chinese artist Wei Lin-shen. However, these large-scale works are only on loan and not available for sale. Purchases of any other items can be made by cash or credit card. Anyway, we have a lot to see this morning, so if you'll follow me, we will get started with our first display area.
That is the end of section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 3. Section 3. You will hear a conversation between two students discussing plans for an upcoming geology field trip. First, you have some time to read through questions 21 to 26. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
Good morning, Sharon.
Hi, Eric. I was thinking about where we should go to collect samples for our geology project.
Yes, we should start planning that field trip soon. Have you come up with any ideas?
I'm not sure about it, as I've not been there, but the Laxford Bray Road section in Scotland would be a great place. I guess they were cutting through this hill to build a section of road in the past, and it revealed all these interesting colourful layers of stone of all different types.
Yes, that's a good idea. I've been there, and it has some great examples of layering and the processes of rock formation. But unfortunately, they don't allow visitors to take samples, and that's something we will need to do. We can certainly take some photographs of geological formations there, though.
Ah, I didn't realise they don't allow sampling at Laxford Bray. Well, we could take a quick visit there and then go to another nearby location. I was thinking about Sicker Point. It has quite a lot of fantastic coastal rock formations. You can actually see examples of the formation of mountains and other complex rock structures, all made in a variety of different stone. It was great to see all of them in just one location.
And what about sampling there?
Yes, they do allow collecting of samples from the site, but you have to buy special permits for school or research groups. I think it's only £20 per group, so that's definitely an advantage of that site.
Yes, I like that idea. I was at Sycamore Point in the early 2000s and again 5 years ago. Both times I was very impressed with the geological variety. I think we can get some fine specimens.
What should the focus be for the sampling?
Well, maybe we can gather specimens of rock that have been formed through one or more of the 3 primary types of geological formation: erosion, deposit, and folding, which should all be available at Sycamore Point.
Right, that should be straightforward enough.
But we will have to be careful not to damage any formations or the natural surroundings when collecting samples.
Absolutely. I know there are certain areas that are off limits for sample collecting, so we will need to find out where they are and avoid them. And I think there are also guidelines we need to follow with regard to the quantity of specimens we can take, and removal procedures as well. We can probably find that information on their website.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you can read through questions 27 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 27 to 30.
And there is already quite a lot of research on the site that we can review before we go on the trip. I think it might be a good idea to review some of James Hutton's work and include some of his study findings in our project. He discovered Siccar Point's geological significance back in the 1700s.
That's right. He studied geological formations at the site. He wrote a lot about folding and deposition processes and how they created the stone structures at Siccar Point. You know, we might want to focus on those processes for our project.
Yes, that would work. We can probably add the erosion process too. There are lots of examples of wind and water erosion there. It's fascinating to see how the elements have created so many interesting shapes.
In that case, we should probably include other academic sources in addition to James Hutton. What about the research of James Hall and John Playfair? They worked directly with James Hutton and helped in mapping the area, focusing on specific types of formations, such as those created by erosion, because the variety at the site was so vast. I think we can include their findings in addition to Hutton's work.
Also, didn't Ian Stewart do research at Siccar Point?
You're right. Yes, he's even made some documentary videos about the significance of the site.
Yes, I watched those. They were quite informative and included a lot of current geological information on the site. So, it might be good to include some of Stewart's research for a contemporary viewpoint.
Yes, we should do that. Anyway, I don't have anything to do tomorrow morning, so I can write up the plan summary. I know you're busy Monday, but maybe on Tuesday you can start collecting research data from other academic sources about the geological formations at the site. I think Professor Franklin asked for the summary by Friday, and if she approves, we can go ahead and make the necessary arrangements for collecting specimens.
Sure, I can see what other sources I can find in addition to the ones we discussed.
Okay, well, let's meet again tomorrow afternoon to get everything together before the deadline.
That's fine with me. Just let me know when you're...
That is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 4. Section 4. You will hear a lecture from a professor in a biology class about bowerbirds. First, you have some time to read through questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
So today, I'd like us to focus on birds that collect objects, sometimes referred to as collector birds. These include such species as ravens, crows, and magpies. But first, I want to discuss bowerbirds. Male bowerbirds are very well known for gathering objects such as colored stones, feathers, shiny or metallic items, and even flowers and leaves. But unlike ravens, crows, and magpies, the male bowerbirds don't collect these objects just because they strike their fancy. Found in Australia and New Guinea, these gardener birds actually use the objects they collect for a specific purpose. The birds were given this name because of their habit of creating yards, gardens, or structures decorated with their collected items. So, the male bowerbirds construct shelters made of sticks, grass, leaves, twigs, and other debris collected from nearby trees. These shelters are known as bowers and are then decorated with the collected objects, so they are usually very easily recognizable. It's important to note that the bowerbird structures look nothing like nests. They are actually more like buildings than traditional birds' nests, many with walls, roofs, and pathways. But there is variety in the types of shelters they build. Researchers studying bowerbirds have now categorized the bowers into 3 different classifications. First, there is the mat or platform type of bower. It's usually an elevated pad, and the male bowerbirds put decorations on top of it or around it. The platform bower's design is fairly simple, but it is often lavishly decorated to make up for a lack of structural complexity. And then, the next type is the maypole bower. It is sort of a tower that's built around a small tree, but many have been known to reach heights of up to 9 feet. So the scale and complexity of construction is quite a bit more impressive than, for example, the platform bower. The maypole bower is also decorated with bits of collected treasure, although less extravagantly, as the structures themselves are quite attractive. The third type of bower has 2 walls that run parallel and sort of create an archway. These are called avenue bowers, and what makes them very striking is that the bowerbirds will even spread gravel around it to make a yard or a garden area. It is interesting to note that these particular types of bowers are often purposely located near attractive trees or shrubs so that they are in attractive surroundings. Avenue bowers are tent-like in structure, and like the other types, they too are decorated with feathers or other colorful debris. But, like other collector birds, the bowerbirds can be very aggressive when it comes to these collected treasures. Often, male bowerbirds will attempt to steal attractive objects from other males in order to make their own structures more attractive. Naturally, male bowerbirds are very protective of their bowers and become quite aggressive when thieves attempt to steal their treasures. So, let's look at the reason why the male bowerbirds go through all this trouble to build these structures and decorate them so elaborately. Well, it is all part of their mating ritual. The little homes are decorated in order to attract female bowerbirds and convince them to move in and become a mate. The female birds will come and inspect the bowers, and if they like what they see on the first visit, they return a second time to see if the builder is home. They check out the bowers again as well as their suitors. Male bowerbirds often perform a dance of sorts and urge the females to move into the well-decorated structures. And females will then decide whether or not they will mate with an interested male suitor. However, at this point, we come across a very interesting situation. Some female bowerbirds are more drawn to an attractive male with lots of colorful plumage or feathers, but with a rather simple bower with minimal decoration. Others are drawn more to a fancier structure and perhaps a less attractive mate. And so we do tend to see males that are less eye-catching build structures that are quite elaborate and intricately decorated. Attractive males, on the other hand, don't put as much work into their bowers. But then we do occasionally see less attractive males who don't put much effort into their bowers at all. And often they end up mateless. And vice versa, we occasionally see attractive males building very well-decorated structures, and they can end up having several mates. Okay, now let's carry on with crows and ravens, which are...
That is the end of section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers. That is the end of the listening test. Please take 10 minutes to fill in the answer sheet with your responses. You now have 2 minutes left. You now have 1 minute left. You can now stop and wait while the
미국
question
영어와
booklet is
영국
collected.
영어의 차이. 미국 영어와 영국 영어의 발음 차이. 자음 발음 차이. 1.
Car,
car,
order,
order,
turn,
turn,
weather.
weather.
Public transportation is limited here, so it's best to rent a car.
Public transportation is limited here, so it's best to rent a car.
A caterpillar will turn into a butterfly after around 12 months.
A caterpillar will turn into a butterfly after around 12 months.
2. Computer,
Computer,
matter,
matter,
variety,
variety,
water.
water.
It is important that we address this matter in the meeting.
It is important that we address this matter in the meeting.
The lake was formed by water from the melting glaciers.
The lake was formed by water from the
기타
melting
다른
glaciers.
1.
Advantage,
Advantage,
international,
international,
internet,
internet,
representative.
representative.
Its natural harbor has given this city a huge advantage over others.
Its natural harbour has given this city a huge advantage over others.
Representatives will give talks at the biology seminar.
Representatives will give talks at the biology seminar.
2. Definitely,
Definitely.
mountain,
Mountain.
recently,
Recently.
rotten.
Rotten.
The novel is definitely one of the most popular for young readers.
The novel is definitely one of the most popular for young readers.
Our hiking trail will offer some great views of the mountain.
Our hiking trail will offer some great views of the mountain.
3.
Article,
Article,
property,
property,
reporter,
reporter,
shortage.
shortage.
A newspaper article mentioned that this resort was one of the best.
A newspaper article mentioned that this resort was one of the best.
To be a reporter, you should study journalism or English at university.
To be a reporter, you should study journalism or English at university.
4. Baton,
Baton.
debris,
Debris.
frontier,
Frontier.
garage.
Garage.
Please watch out for any debris near the pool as we pass by.
Please watch out for any debris near the pool as we pass by.
The building is not far from France's frontier with Germany.
The building is not far from France's frontier with Germany.
5.
Contemporary.
Contemporary.
Laboratory.
Laboratory.
Necessary.
Necessary.
Obligatory.
Obligatory.
This contemporary art museum is one of the best in the world.
This contemporary art museum is one of the best in the world.
Many question whether it is necessary to teach religion in school.
Many question whether it is necessary to teach
너
religion
나름
in
차이.
school.
1.
Ask.
Ask.
Example.
Example.
Forecast.
Forecast.
Pass.
Pass.
A good manager should create an environment where people can ask questions.
A good manager should create an environment where people can ask questions.
The economic forecast for the forthcoming quarter is unexpectedly good.
The economic forecast for the forthcoming quarter is unexpectedly good.
2. Directory,
Directory.
either,
Either.
neither,
Neither.
organization.
Organization.
You can either buy food from the canteen downstairs or the cafe here.
You can either buy food from the canteen downstairs or the cafe here.
The First World War began because neither side was willing to back down.
The First World War began because neither side was willing to back down.
3.
Bottom.
Bottom.
Not.
Not.
Popular.
Popular.
Problem.
Problem.
You'll see our lobby located at the bottom of the map.
You'll see our lobby located at the bottom of the map.
This beach is the most popular attraction on the island.
This beach is the most popular attraction on the island.
4. Newsletter,
Newsletter.
opportunity,
Opportunity.
student,
Student.
tune.
Tune.
The position involved sending out newsletters to attract customers.
The position involved sending out newsletters to attract customers.
I had an opportunity to move to a bigger flat last year.
I had an opportunity to move to a bigger
Hackers
flat last year.
IELTS listening.
Chapter 1. Multiple choice. Example. Hello, Helen. Please have a seat. Can I help you with something?
Yes, well, I'm working on my research paper for my ecology class, but I've run into a bit of trouble.
I see. What seems to be the problem exactly?
I can't find sufficient research about my topic, island formation.
Well, have you looked up any research from Dr. Peter Lyons? He's an authority on island formations and is well known for his books on tropical islands too.
I've read his dissertation on rock categorizations, and I thought that was the field where he had the most expertise.
No, that was in his early years as a researcher. Recently, he's focused far more on islands.
I see. I'll definitely look him up in the university library then.
Yes, he's a great source, and he also provides references for other studies on tectonic. Hackers practice.
패러프레이징 연습.
1.
All of us will go and look around the very old opera venue.
2.
The Central Art Gallery is currently being renovated.
3.
The deadline for handing in the entrance form is the first Monday of next month.
4.
Everyone from our club goes on a hike together in the mountains each autumn.
5.
I'm afraid I'm not entirely sure what the office of the registrar is.
6.
The island breaks the bay up into two main sections.
7.
Nutritionists create menu plans with limits on daily fat and calorie levels.
8.
Art therapy is proven effective among mental patients.
9.
We are making a machine that generates a very small amount of rubbish material.
10.
Humpback whales can communicate by singing, sometimes for periods of up to 24 hours.
11.
The companies have created a series of new business strategies which involve using innovative marketing plans to increase sales.
12.
E. Lillian Todd was an aviation pioneer who was responsible for important progress in aircraft design in the early years of the 20th century.
유형 연습.
Section 1. You will hear a conversation between a tour company agent and a traveller discussing tour details. First, you have some time to read through questions 1 to 4. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 4.
Thank you for contacting Sunwave Tours. How may I help you?
Hi, my name is Alex. I'm here in Melbourne for work until this Saturday, and I'd like to go on the city tour that I saw advertised in your flyer. I'm available on either Wednesday or Thursday.
We can certainly accommodate that. What in our city are you interested in seeing?
Well, I am curious about both historical sites and contemporary culture, but I'm also interested in old architecture. So I do want to tour some art galleries more than anything. I heard that there's a National Art Gallery in the city.
Yes, there is. I'd actually recommend our Top Spots tour. It starts just in front of our office on Elizabeth Street and concludes at the National Gallery of Victoria, and there are lots of places to get lunch in that area afterward.
That really sounds ideal. And what does the tour cost?
Let's see. It's $55 for the half day. That runs for a total of about 5 hours. Or there is a full day tour that costs a bit more. It includes a 7-hour tour with a free lunch.
Seems reasonable enough. What time does the half-day tour start?
It's from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. this Wednesday. The guide for this tour likes to start earlier in the day so that you can see the sunlight shines on the major landmarks at optimal times.
That might be a bit too early for me.
Then you might like the Major Views full-day tour this Thursday. That tour also stops by the National Gallery of Victoria, but takes you up to popular viewing spots where you can see the city's most famous landmarks. It starts in the morning, too, at 11 a.m., but the bulk of it takes place in the afternoon, ending at 6 p.m. The guide will also take you to a nice restaurant for lunch.
Oh, all right. I reckon the Thursday tour will suit me best. What is the cost for that tour?
It's $70 per person, but we have a special this month. You get $25 off if you make at least 2 bookings.
That seems reasonable. However, I'm the only person, so please book just 1 spot for me.
Great. What's your name and phone number?
Alex Fenway. Fenway. And my mobile number is 555-671-920.
Uh-huh. Thank you, Alex. On the day of the tour, there will be a guide at Central Station to meet you. The guide will be holding a large sign and wearing a T-shirt with Sunwave Tours printed on it.
Great. Thanks for all your help.
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 2. You will hear a radio broadcast by an announcer about making purchases overseas. First, you have some time to read through questions 5 to 7. Now listen carefully and answer questions 5 to 7.
Good afternoon. Thanks for listening to today's broadcast of Smart Shopping. As we head into the winter season, many of you will be travelling out of the country for your annual holidays. And while away, you're likely to buy some souvenirs to bring back with you. On today's programme, I'm going to give you some tips on what to be cautious of and how to make good purchases while abroad. So, my first point is about payment. Tourists from the UK are mainly accustomed to pulling out a credit card and charging just about everything. Well, that's not such a good idea when overseas for 2 reasons. First, there is a lot of credit card fraud. Credit card usage is simply not secure. Secondly, the seller will have to charge you anywhere between 3 and 5% more in credit card fees that they must pay to credit card companies. So use cash if at all possible. And that brings me to my next word of advice. Check the exchange rates offered for your currency before making payments by cash or even credit cards. Some establishments offer poor rates, so it is better to exchange your money in a bank, which ensures better rates, and use local currency in those cases. Also, it is always a good idea to get tax refunds for your purchases when possible, as it can save you a lot of money. International travellers are often eligible for these refunds in many locations and won't have to pay taxes on the items they buy. Find out ahead of time what the minimum purchase amount is and what types of purchases are eligible. And don't forget to claim your refunds at your point of departure before checking in, as you may have to show the purchases to agents along with original receipts. But there are many items that you are not permitted to transport on planes or trains, so I also want to cover.
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 2. You will hear a tour guide talking to some visitors about a national monument. First, you have some time to read through questions 8 to 11. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 8 to 11.
Welcome everyone to Devil's Tower National Monument. Not only can you view the famous Devil's Tower rock formation, but there are lots of great routes for hiking and rock climbing here in the park. If you are interested, you can ask about those activities at our climbing office. You'll find it conveniently located between our visitor center and gift shop. Now, Devil's Tower is situated in the picturesque Black Hills here in Wyoming. The formation itself is very imposing, standing at 867 feet, or 265 meters, from the base to the summit. To local Native Americans, this is a significant site. Because of that and its striking beauty, Devil's Tower was made an official national monument over a century ago. Since then, it has become a popular destination amongst rock climbers. So how did the rock formation get its unusual name? You might think it's because it can be dangerous to hike up or climb. Actually, explorer Colonel Richard Irving led an expedition to the area in 1875. His interpreter is said to have made an error translating the native language and said the unusual formation was named Bad God's Tower. Irving took that to mean the Devil's Tower, but many native peoples say that the formation was probably originally called Bear Tower or Bear's Lodge. Anyway, what are we all going to see and do at the park today? First, we are going to take a short hike up to a ridge that will offer you panoramic views of the tower and the park. The route we will be taking is called the Joyner Ridge Trail, and it is a marked loop that's 1.5 miles long. Just a few safety reminders before we head out on the trail. First, please watch your step during our hike as the trail we are taking is unpaved. Also, please be reminded that food is only permitted in specified areas that are marked with signs, and it is vital that you do not feed animals you may encounter in the park. After our hike, I'll take you to the visitor center where you can check out our displays and browse through souvenirs in our gift shop. Okay, so could you all please come this way?
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 3. You will hear a conversation between two students about studying abroad in Singapore. First, you have some time to read through questions 12 to 16. Now listen carefully and answer questions 12 to 16.
Hello, Laura. Do you have a minute?
Sure, John. What's up?
I've been considering enrolling in the study abroad program in Singapore for psychology that you completed last term, but I'm still unsure of some things.
What things in particular?
Well, I couldn't find much information on the application process. What was it like?
Actually, it was a bit too complicated. There are a lot of steps to complete.
I see. And what did you think about the lectures there?
They were excellent. I found all of them very informative and insightful.
And the lecturers themselves?
They are all experts in their areas. A few of them are even published authors, especially the professor of my psychometrics course. He was terrific. It was because of him that I chose the topic of psychometrics for my senior year thesis.
Oh, that sounds rather challenging.
Not at all. I was intimidated by the subject at first, but I didn't find it overly complicated as it was just an introductory course. I definitely recommend taking that one.
I see. Which other courses do you recommend?
I know that you're focusing your studies on counselling, so you should take the adult counselling course that is offered as well.
Yes, that would be good. Were there quite a lot of assignments or requirements for each class?
A fair amount, but instead of a long final paper, most of the classes I took concluded with a final test.
That sounds tough. Are there many differences between studying there and in the UK?
Definitely. The type of psychology they teach is very similar to statistics. Lots of numbers, data, and stuff like that. Far less of the theory and discussion we had in the UK, and more science-based work, so it's a different sort of challenge, but it appealed to me. That's why I chose psychometrics.
Oh, that makes sense. I'm actually hoping to take some data analysis courses if I take part in the program too. It would help with my minor in psycholinguistics.
Speaking of which, I have some information about data courses in Singapore. Let's head to...
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 3. You will hear a student talking to a professor about a car technology competition. First, you have some time to read through questions 17 to 20. Now listen carefully and answer questions 17 to 20.
Professor Brown, I'm hoping to participate in the National Car Technology Competition.
Certainly, Alice. The idea submission deadline is next Thursday, though. Do you already have an idea in mind?
Oh, I have a couple of ideas. One is for a biometric access system. This would allow only particular users to unlock, start, and drive the vehicle by using sensors.
Interesting idea. How would that work exactly?
Well, it would require the use of a scanner to access the vehicle and interior sensors to scan the eyes of drivers for retinal confirmation. Drivers would place a thumb on the outdoor scanner to unlock the vehicle, and the retinal sensor would allow them to turn on the ignition.
That might be complicated. Do you have any ideas on how that sensor might work?
I was thinking about embedding it in the rear-view mirror. The driver would simply look into the mirror, and the sensor would scan their retina. If the person is authorized to use the vehicle, the ignition would automatically turn on.
Sounds impressive. I think you should go ahead with that idea. Is there anything else you need help with?
Well, actually, the entrance fee is higher than I expected.
Oh, there actually is a sponsorship from the university that you may be eligible for, and as far as I know, you'll be able to do that. Then the cost of $200 for entering the competition would be lifted. And of course, you'd be able to use materials for the project at our lab facilities. You can pick up a form to apply for the sponsorship at the academic office.
Excellent. And what is required for the application?
You'll first need to submit a proposal, no longer than 1 page, to the Dean of the Engineering College by this Wednesday. If he thinks your idea is intriguing enough, then he'll meet with you in person to discuss some additional details about it.
All right. I suppose I ought to get started on typing my proposal then.
Oh, and for your reference, the proposal must include a rough design or sketch of your idea. Otherwise, the Dean won't accept it. It's a very particular requirement, but it's because he prefers to look at papers with graphical information. The proposal can be structured as you like and in any file format, and you can list references any way you want as well.
That's exactly what I was going to inquire about next. Actually, would you have some time to meet either today or Tuesday to provide me with some guidance on how to draft the proposal?
Certainly. I'll be available at my office after 4 p.m. this Tuesday. See you then?
Great. I'll come by your office at 4:30 on Tuesday. Thanks.
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 4. You will hear a lecture by a dietary expert about the ways in which people can reduce their sugar intake. First, you have some time to read through questions 21 to 25. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 25.
So, as we discussed last time, sugar is the culprit for a variety of ailments. Not only is it an addictive substance, but it is a direct cause for diabetes, the rates of which have never been higher. In addition to that, it also contributes to heart disease, obesity, and mood disorders. And those health issues are also rising at an alarming rate. The problem is that people are consuming more sugar than we even realize. So, how can we reduce our intake and avoid a variety of health issues? Well, first, it is important to read through ingredients on manufactured products and be aware that sugar has different names: sucrose, glucose, and fructose, just to name a few. So when advising patients, it is naturally best to tell them to avoid products with added sugar and use sweeteners that are as natural as possible and stay away from processed sugar. Something like honey provides sweetness and is better for digestion than refined sugar, as it allows nutrients to be absorbed more easily. It also contains fewer empty calories than sugar. If the taste of honey is too diverse and processed sugar is preferred, then it is better to use it in its raw state, such as brown sugar, while common white table sugar should be eliminated. And it's also important to not drink sugars. People don't realize the enormous sugar content in a soft drink, and even fruit juices have a very high concentration of sugar as well as high caloric intake. Water, of course, is the #1 fluid we should consume. But I believe herbal teas are another great option because they give you some flavor and they can offer extra vitamins that are good for us. Another thing to avoid is manufactured food products that are labeled fat-free. Often, to make up for the flavor from missing fat, sugar is added. Just for one example, it is better to use real cream in your coffee rather than a fat-free substitute. And likewise, urge people to avoid products that are said to be sugar-free, as they usually contain chemical sugar substitutes which can actually be more harmful than processed sugar. Most dietary experts agree that the best thing people can do is get the sweetness they want through natural sources rather than sweets or sugarless alternatives with chemicals. Get it through fruits and vegetables above all. They are a much better source of natural sugar, and they also contain essential vitamins your body needs. That's the best way to get the sweetness your appetite may want. But you can also eat yogurt and whole wheat products.
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Hackers Test. Section 2. You will hear the head of a development panel talk about a sports complex. First, you have some time to read through questions 1 to 5. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
I'm pleased that you've all gathered here for this public meeting at Brighton City Hall today. I know that many of you are excited to hear details about this weekend's opening of the Brighton Sports Complex. So I've asked Shane Downs, the head of the committee that has been overseeing the development of the complex, to share that information with you. Shane.
Thank you. As many of you are already aware, the Brighton Sports Complex will be the largest athletic stadium our city has ever seen, serving primarily as the venue for national tennis matches. I'm speaking today on behalf of the entire committee that helped get the project started. I'm happy to say to all City Council members here with us today that we stayed well under our budget. The project was also finished by our completion deadline and will open as scheduled. Many of the council members already toured the facility and were very impressed with what they saw. I guess now is a good time to talk about the various sports facilities that are housed in the complex. Not only does the complex house 22 tennis courts, but it also has 2 full-size basketball courts. One will be indoors and available to use year-round. Furthermore, it will be used for games played among regional and national teams. The complex also has a volleyball court, an indoor football field, a weight room, and an Olympic-sized swimming pool. We are incredibly excited to welcome the citizens of Brighton to use these facilities, and soon we will have more details about our plans for a yoga studio. In addition to the exercise facilities, several dining establishments will also be available at the complex. Of course, we want to encourage all of our citizens to lead a healthy lifestyle, so we did not grant retail licenses to any fast food restaurants. Instead, there will be a selection of establishments selling salads, smoothies, and sandwiches made with organic ingredients. All the ingredients are from local sources, giving the visitors to these establishments reassurance that they have not traveled long distances or been processed heavily. As with the rest of our facilities, they will be open from 6 a.m. until 10 p.m., and both members and non-members can patronize any of these establishments, which have been placed on the ground floor.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you can read through questions 6 to 10. Now, listen and answer questions 6 to 10.
Okay, I'll quickly discuss the complex's membership program. Citizens will need to stop by the reception desk and fill out a registration form to become a member. They will then be presented with a membership card that can be used to access all of our facilities. That is, everywhere except the swimming pool. There will be an additional £100 annual fee to use this facility, and members will be able to access the area with their cards. This annual fee will be in addition to the membership fee for overall general use of the complex. And patrons will also be able to rent out private lockers for reasonable rates if they want to have their own. We also have our own car park and will offer complimentary parking to all guests. And we will also have several event halls that members can hire for special events. All fees can be paid easily either in person at the reception desk or by credit card using our online payment system. Oh, and finally, I'm sure most of you already know this, but Millers Road, where Brighton Sports Complex is located, will be blocked off this weekend for street repairs. So it'll be tough to park there. Instead, ample free parking is available in a large car park that has been constructed adjacent to the complex. Join us at the grand opening this Saturday at 10 a.m. and pick up a free T-shirt with our facility's logo on the front. The other committee members and I will expect to see you all there. And now I'll take any questions you might have.
That is the end of section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Section 3. You will hear a conversation between 2 students and a professor talking about a project on globalized marketing in business. First, you have some time to read through questions 11 to 16.
Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 16.
Thanks for stopping by my office, Catherine and Matthew. So, how are you both doing on the project about globalized marketing in business?
I think everything's going smoothly so far. We have finished our outline for the structure of the report, and I've just finished our introduction.
And I've been doing the research for the main body
Yes, we've started doing research online.
about specific globalized companies.
So when we finish that, we can begin work on writing the main body of the report.
Well, what companies have you focused on already, Catherine?
I've discovered some information about globalized fast food businesses. What's notable about these companies is how they've altered their product offerings to appeal to various markets worldwide.
So you've covered one aspect of marketing there, products. Have either of you researched any specific examples of that?
I have. American fast food chain Burger King, for instance, has a menu primarily consisting of burgers containing beef. So when the company launched in India, some changes needed to be made to its products in order to entice the local market, which is made up of many consumers who do not eat beef.
And what impact did doing that have on the company?
Basically, by giving attention to the concerns of individual consumers in India, consumers' perceptions of Burger King's products improved there significantly.
I see.
The company started to become more highly regarded in surrounding countries in Southeast Asia too. It was interesting to see how rapidly favourable news about a company spread like that.
So you've looked at the place aspect of marketing in your analysis of this fast food company as well. Markets react differently in different countries and regions, but your report should focus on all four marketing elements. So, Catherine, what about the other two?
Well, I also did some research on the promotion aspect for print advertising for the Swedish vodka company, Absolut. This company decided to choose different ads for different regions and incorporate cultural slang into each area's advertisements.
Very good. Other than the language, though, what else varied in the ads? Did Absolut modify its usual graphics and size? Or did it make any changes to its image branding?
Not those things specifically, but other elements in print ads, such as colour, also varied in different regions.
Sounds like you've made good progress.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you can read through questions 17 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 17 to 20.
However, you'll still need to address the element of price, and I recommend digging more deeply into globalized marketing for corporations in industries other than food and beverages.
Matthew's got some interesting information about fashion companies, actually.
Is that so, Matthew?
Yeah. US clothing retail chain Calvin Klein had some trouble when it ran commercials for a new clothing line, and many consumers in foreign markets found them highly inappropriate.
How were the advertisements and products inappropriate exactly?
Well, it was a very contemporary-styled campaign, but the general consumer response there was that the clothes were too revealing, and that response was from young and old consumers alike.
Yeah, it wasn't a good start for Calvin Klein's first globalization effort.
Unfortunately not. But the company turned things around by designing a new line in spring 2013 that featured elements of traditional clothing from various countries, while maintaining the muted and simple color scheme of their general clothing.
Yes, and they also changed their prices, so the new clothes were more affordable than the previous line. Our report will discuss price a bit in regard to Calvin Klein.
Good. How did the marketing team decide on adjusting prices for each foreign market?
They naturally had to consider the break-even point for every product, and based on that, they could determine how much to set each product's profit margin at.
Great. I'd like you to integrate those details into your report.
Absolutely. I've got notes on the equations from last week's class on profit margin analysis and have decided to include those too.
Yeah, and we're working on creating some graphs that illustrate those equations as well.
That's good, because I don't want you to have an excessive amount of text in the report. So, could you tell me what you have in mind for the structure of the report?
Yeah, we'll have an introduction followed by one section for each of the 4 aspects of marketing, and then finally a conclusion. All of the formulas and graphics will be printed in an appendix at the end of the report.
Actually, you should mix the visual materials in with the text. Just add footnotes for each graphic.
I see. I'll adjust my outline then. Thanks for your advice, Professor.
Yes, we appreciate it. We're going to head to the library now to find some visual examples of globalized advertising. We thought it might be a good idea to include pictures of actual ads in the report.
No problem. I'm looking forward to seeing your final draft submission next week.
That is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Chapter 2. Note: Form completion. Example.
So, let's discuss what companies can do if there is an issue regarding products. Crisis management is the answer, and that's what we will look at today. When companies don't deal with issues, it can cause consumers to reject them. We will discuss what businesses can do to restore consumer faith in their products. The most important aspect of crisis management is a quick response. The company must identify the causes of problems and deal with them rapidly. This will ensure the perception of stability is maintained and the company is seen to be reliable and dependable, which will have a calming effect on both consumers and stockholders. However, it is vital to remember to avoid panic or
Hackers practice.
딕테이션 연습.
1.
Her name is Brenda Schneider. Schneider. Her name is Brenda Schneider. Schneider.
2.
Your new student ID number is 012PQG. Your new student ID number is 012PQG.
3.
The seminar will be held in Lecture Hall 127B. The seminar will be held in Lecture Hall 127B.
4.
You can sign up for campus clubs at the library information counter. You can sign up for campus clubs at the library information counter.
5.
We'll email you a curriculum outline after the consultation. We'll email you a curriculum outline after the consultation.
6.
Freud noted love and belonging as being the most difficult human needs to obtain. Freud noted love and belonging as being the most difficult human needs to obtain.
7.
A new technology company was sold to one of its larger competitors for approximately $176.9 billion. A new technology company was sold to one of its larger competitors for approximately $176.9 billion.
8.
All participants must reserve their spots in advance and pay online by credit card. All participants must reserve their spots in advance and pay online by credit card.
9.
In the study, participants were asked for their reactions to various images. In the study, participants were asked for their reactions to various images.
10.
The textbook highlights that managers should identify specialized worker skills. The textbook highlights that managers should identify specialized worker skills.
11.
The council holds meetings twice a week to discuss ideas for town improvements. The council holds meetings twice a week to discuss ideas for town improvements.
12.
Tickets for the university game will be available from the 10th of October. Tickets for the university game will be available from the 10th of October.
13.
Stricter regulations on hunting and fishing might also protect the grey wolf species. Stricter regulations on hunting and fishing might also protect the grey wolf species.
14.
Baroque columns were often designed to be curved or spiraled in overall appearance. Baroque columns were often designed to be curved or spiraled in overall appearance.
15.
Penicillin can reduce the spread of illness by disrupting the duplication of harmful bacteria. Penicillin can reduce the spread of illness by disrupting the duplication of harmful bacteria.
16.
This flowering plant has developed thorns all over its body as a means of defense from insects and other predators. This flowering plant has developed thorns all over its body as a means of defense from insects and other predators.
유형 연습. Section 1. You will hear a conversation between a customer and an agent at an art academy. First, you have some time to read through questions 1 to 4. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 4.
Hello, this is the Ridley Art Academy. Come in. Can I help you with anything?
Yes, I just moved to town and am interested in enrolling my child in an art program. So, I wanted to see what kinds of classes you offer.
Wonderful. We have several art courses for children. If you could give me a few pieces of information first, I'd appreciate it. Could I get your name?
Pablo Marquez. That's spelled M-A-R-Q-U-E-Z.
and the age of your child?
Just turned 10 about 4 months ago.
Well, we have a few different courses for that age group. One is Introduction to Art, which includes painting, drawing, and lots of fun activities. We also offer Sculpture Workshop, where the children work with different sculpting materials, and History of Art, where the children learn a bit about famous artists and art movements.
I think the introductory class would be best.
Good. Now, we currently have 16 children enrolled in that course, but we have a teacher and 2 assistants with them at all times.
Great. And how much do you charge?
Actually, we charge per month. The cost would be £160, and you pay at the beginning of each month. But if you enroll for a period of a full year, the rate is only £120 per month.
Really? Well, we plan to enroll for a year anyway. Okay, I would like to go ahead if there is space.
Absolutely. The classes will start this coming Tuesday.
That's fine. So that's February 2nd, right?
That's correct. And payment is accepted by cash, credit card, or cheque. Which do you prefer?
I'll pay with my credit card. Thanks.
Sure. Now, if I could just get you to fill in this enrollment form, I'll go ahead and take care of your payment. And then I'll get you a brochure about the academy and a copy of your child's art class schedule. Also, there is a list of our policies, which you can look through and...
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 1. You will hear a telephone conversation between a customer and a receptionist from an insurance company about medical coverage. First, you have some time to read through questions 5 to 9. Now listen carefully and answer questions 5 to 9.
Midlands Health Coverage Services, this is Melanie speaking. How can I help you?
Hi, I'm planning to study abroad in Spain for September and October this year, and I'll need medical insurance.
Certainly, I can help you. First, if you don't mind, I'll need to get some information from you. Could I first get your name and postal address, please?
Yes, it is Adam Harker, and I'm at 48 Bixteth Street in Liverpool. That's Bixteth.
Uh-huh. What is your postcode?
It is L34EW.
Oh, and I'll also need your home phone number.
Sure, that's 0151 555 0143.
Thanks. Got it. And could you tell me if you currently suffer from any medical conditions or diseases? Policy rates are a bit higher if you are already diagnosed with a medical problem.
No, nothing that I know of. I had a checkup last month and everything was okay.
Great. Well, we have a policy for those studying in continental Europe.
Oh.
It's a student policy for those aged 17 to 25, and it is for basic coverage and costs £88 per month. However, dental work and medication are not included. We also have comprehensive plans that cover everything, but they cost more.
I'm 27, so I am not eligible for the cheaper plan. How much are the other policies?
Regular plans are £112 per month, and the comprehensive ones are £158.
I have a limited budget, so I'd go for the less expensive option. I plan to travel around a few nearby countries in Europe as well. Would that affect the price? And I might choose to stay in Spain an extra month. So would the rate be the same if I stayed 3 months instead of 2?
Actually, no. There would be a 10% discount and there would be no change to the policy if you travel to neighboring countries.
Well, that's good to know. Okay, so how do I make payment?
You can pay by credit card now or send us a direct deposit from your bank.
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 2. You will hear a radio broadcast about a renovation project. First, you have some time to read through questions 10 to 13. Now listen carefully and answer questions 10 to 13.
Welcome everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Arts National, the weekly news show focused on the arts community. I'm your host, Adam Easton. Our top story this week is that Auckland will be celebrating the reopening of one of its oldest theatres, widely seen as a push to revive stage entertainment in the city. After a nearly 20-year wait, the famed Queen's Theatre will once again open to audiences. The entertainment structure was originally built in 1857. What was the purpose of the facility at that time? Well, it ran stage plays and, later, movies, as well as live performance. But the theatre was forced to close in 1972 when attendance started dropping. Audiences were staying home and watching television, and the theatre was unable to stay in business. However, there was renewed interest in the historical structure nearly 25 years later when the Auckland Theatre Association, an organisation consisting of Auckland's most renowned theatrical professionals, began petitioning the city to provide a permit for the theatre's renovations. It was granted in 1998, and a local construction crew began work to restore the theatre to its original condition. Progress stalled in 2000 due to a lack of funds, but in 2009, an anonymous donor provided the necessary money to complete the renovations. Efforts recommenced, and the restoration project was finally finished just last month. According to Michelle McCall, director of the Auckland Theatre Association, their hope is that the reopened Queen's Theatre will provide a space for community, creativity, and youth engagement. A special program will be held to celebrate the reopening this coming Saturday, including several short performances by theatrical troupes. And then our first scheduled show, a dramatic play entitled Clear Path Ahead, begins on Monday. Those from the general public who wish to attend the reopening performance may purchase tickets from the Auckland Theatre Association's website or visit the Queen's Theatre box office between the hours of 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. any weekday. Seating is limited, with a maximum capacity of 250 people, so a sold-out event is likely. Advance booking is highly recommended. Head down to the Queen's Theatre next week for one or all of these great events. And don't forget, you can find more about the other plays and performances that are scheduled to appear in the theatre program or online. On our next scheduled show, I will be reporting on a new exhibit at the Museum of Science, so tune in next week for...
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 3. You will hear a conversation between two students about a joint presentation of a case study. First, you have some time to read through questions 14 to 18. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 14 to 18.
So, Kate, let's go over the content for our presentation on perceptions of women in executive roles. What will we do first?
Okay, well, first, why don't you introduce the main focus of the case study, James?
Sure, that's fine. And maybe I can also explain why we chose to do our research in only one city. What should I say about that?
Well, it was so that we can compare our study with those done in other locations. We can see if the cultural differences in different places play a role in the outcome.
Yes, it seems that culture made a big difference. We can bring that up in the analysis part of the presentation. And once the introduction is done, I will provide a sample of our survey so that people understand how we approach the topic of women in executive roles. I can offer an explanation of our research methods also.
Sounds good. And next, let's see. If you want, I can present the data we got from the survey. I'll describe how female executives perceived their roles and how other co-workers perceived them. I thought there weren't too many discrepancies between those two viewpoints.
No, I think there were some differences. But one similarity I thought was very interesting was how employees and colleagues of the women we surveyed were so uninterested in the importance, or should I say necessity, of the women's roles. I got the feeling from the data that female executives were seen to have been given
just token positions, right? Rather than well-deserved roles. I agree. That was especially true among males surveyed, and that should be an important portion of the presentation. You could present the analysis of our findings and include that point. There's quite solid evidence that women are still not taken seriously in the workplace. We like to think that we treat men and women the same, but there certainly is evidence that there are very few female executives in comparison to males.
Right. The relevance of this study is that it gives tangible examples of how we haven't achieved fairness in terms of job opportunities or treatment in the workplace.
And it also points to the underlying social stigma around women and professionalism that society needs to overcome. We have to do a discussion part after the presentation as well, right? Perhaps we can discuss ideas about how businesses can make efforts to create workplaces that promote equality for women.
No, we don't have to. The discussion portion is optional. But I think you're right. I think that would be an excellent topic for those attending the presentation to discuss. Could you be the facilitator for that?
I can do that. Well, it seems that we have everything we need.
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 4. You will hear a seminar by a researcher on human longevity research. First, you have some time to read through questions 19 to 22. Now listen carefully and answer questions 19 to 22.
Many people are not aware of the reasons for longevity, but recent studies have revealed that there are many things to consider. For this morning's seminar, I'm going to focus on human longevity. Human longevity is a topic I've been involved with as a scientist for over 20 years. I'd like to share some of the key points of recent research with you and discuss some of the contributing factors to longevity. There's been a battle among scientists over whether genes or environment and behavior determine a person's lifespan. Do people live longer because of heredity or genes? Or is longevity nurtured through healthy habits? We are finding that it's a combination of factors. Some that are learned and others are from nature. First, I am going to discuss nature, or more specifically, genetic factors for longer lifespans. For a long while, researchers have been searching for what they call the longevity gene. A prevailing theory has been that longevity is predetermined by a person's genetics. So, have they discovered this gene yet? Well, no, but biologists have recently identified a protein, SIRT3, as the possible key to slowing down the aging process. What they found was that this protein helped stem cells cope with stress. But just months after the results of this study were released, another group of researchers published an article revealing several flaws in the study. Their strongest critique was that a molecular-level response doesn't necessarily translate into longer lives for people. Now, I'd like to talk about behavioral factors, or the nurture aspect of longevity. Most researchers now agree that the causes of longevity are complex, and that even if there is a gene for longevity, other factors, both environmental and behavioral, can weigh in just as much. Take, for example, an 80-year study called the Longevity Project that was conducted by a team of social psychologists in the US. 1,500 people took part in the experiment from the time they were kids in 1921. And it tracked every possible environmental and behavioral factor to determine the character traits, habits, and mindsets that make some people live longer. You might think that things like healthy habits would be more predictive of a long life. However, the study actually revealed that personality characteristics and social relationships from childhood are predictive of a person's lifespan. In other words, there were correlations between certain behavioral or environmental factors and longevity. One example from the study revealed that it is the most prudent and persistent individuals, not the most cheerful and humorous ones, who survive the longest. It also showed that those who were hard workers and were most committed to their careers lived longer. We often associate a relaxed, stress-free attitude with a longer, healthier life, but that's not always the case. And one final bit of information comes from another study conducted by a team at Brigham Young University. The results show that people who maintain strong friendships and relationships tend to live longer.
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 4. You will hear a lecture by a psychology professor about the effects of meditation on the brain. First, you have some time to read through questions 23 to 28. Now listen carefully and answer questions 23 to 28.
Today we're going to talk about the catalyst behind the recent trend in people taking up the practice of meditation. Now, this particular trend is tied directly to an increasing amount of scientific research, which has shown the benefits of meditation. First, I'm going to explain how science measures meditation's effects on the brain, and then we'll look at some scientific studies. To start, it's important to remember that scientific studies of meditation's effects on the central nervous system are broken down into two categories. The first is the study of state changes, which are instant changes in brain activity that occur while meditating. The second involves looking for trait changes, which are more permanent changes resulting from long-term practice of meditation. To perform studies, scientists use several technologies. The most common one is electroencephalography, or EEG, which measures the electrical activity of the outer layer of our brains. EEG measures the duration of brain activity very effectively and precisely. However, it isn't as effective at locating the activity in the brain. In contrast to the EEG is another method which is called neuroimaging. Scientists use neuroimaging to detect blood flow to areas of the brain, as blood flow indicates those areas are being used. Knowing this helps scientists understand which brain functions are affected during meditation. Thus, unlike EEG, neuroimaging is better at identifying location. So, let's look specifically into some recent findings. There have been studies of those practicing Vipassana, an ancient form of meditation from India. They indicated a lot of activity in areas of the cortex related to the ability to focus on an activity, and showed that meditators have improved control over their attention levels. They were less prone to being affected by noises or other distractions. Later, studies conducted on practitioners of ancient Japanese Zen meditation resulted in similar findings. It's also been discovered that meditators experience emotional states more powerfully than most people. In 2008, Antoine Lutz, a neuroscientist at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, did a study of emotional response during meditation. He tested subjects' responses to emotionally charged sounds during meditation. By using neuroimaging, he was able to see increased activity in areas of the brain related to emotional reaction. Now that I've discussed findings related to state changes, what about the longer-term trait changes? Well, there is evidence that meditation protects against the natural reduction in grey matter. That is, the volume of the brain doesn't shrink as much with age. So, though meditation does not actually increase brain size, long-term meditators have better attention in their later years. So there are definitely benefits for aging. But there are also clinical applications of meditation that offer promising long-term results. An example of this is the effectiveness of regular meditation in treating depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Meditation also has some physiological applications in terms of dieting, where it is part of the mindfulness diet, and exercise, especially when combined with yoga. In conclusion, there is evidence to show that there are both state and long-term benefits for those who practice meditation on a regular basis. And I believe this will help continue the trend of more people becoming regular practitioners.
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers. Hacker's test.
Section 1. You will hear a telephone conversation between a customer and a camping site representative about reserving a campsite. First, you have some time to read through questions 1 to 2. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 2.
New Forest Campgrounds, this is Shelley speaking.
Hello, I am planning a trip with some friends for this weekend. Do you have space for a medium-sized recreational vehicle to park on your grounds?
Let me check our schedule. Yes, we do have a space vacant.
Okay, that's good. And we will have some additional cars too. Do you have extra parking spaces?
We have a few, but they are often filled up. However, there is parking available nearby at Exbury Gardens. You'll see it right next to the bus stop for the gardens.
What was the name of that again?
Exbury Gardens. It is a 10-minute stroll from the camping site. Or if you're driving, it's under 5 minutes from our grounds to the garden's main gate.
Oh, yes. I've heard of those gardens.
They are quite popular. I'd highly recommend a visit there to see the floral displays. And you can also go boating on a lake there. You and your group may enjoy it.
Thanks for the tip. I'm here with friends, and we have already made plans to do some hiking. Anyway, could I go ahead and make the reservation?
Certainly. Let me get a reservation form. I'm going to need to take down some information from you.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you can read through questions 3 to 10. Now, listen and answer questions 3 to 10.
Not a problem at all.
First, could I please get your full name?
Sure. My name's Ken White.
Good. Oh, and could I get your street address for our records?
Yep, it is 43 Hughes Street. That's Hughes, and it is in Bracknell.
And could I get a number to contact you at?
My mobile number is 07700 940 281.
07700 940 381?
940 281.
Got it. OK, and what date do you plan to arrive?
I'll be there on Saturday, October 4th.
And how many nights do you plan to stay?
Just the one night. We're driving to the coast to spend 2 nights there after that.
OK, that's fine. So, what time do you think you'll arrive?
I'll be arriving there at about 12 p.m.
OK. I am going to reserve space 27 for you, located in Lot D. That's in the northwest corner of the grounds. So when you come in the gate, go straight ahead for about 5 minutes, and then turn left before you come to the main building. How many guests will there be in total?
It'll just be me and 3 friends, so 4 altogether. Oh, could you tell me the cost? Do you charge per person or per space?
We charge just for the space, and it would be £30 for the night. You can pay when you arrive, but I'll need your number now if you plan to pay by credit card.
Oh, I'll be paying in cash. And we were hoping to do some grilling too. Are we allowed to do that?
Yes, but if you cook food at your campsite, there are a few things you should be aware of. We don't recommend cooking any food after it gets dark. That's usually around 8 p.m. If you do that, then wild animals might be attracted to the smell. Also, we do have a small supply of grills available, but there is a £5 charge for use. And we also rent out tents. But in both cases, you need to let me know in advance.
My friends and I have been on camping trips like this before, and we're always cautious. But thanks for the warning. Yes, we will want to use one of your grills for sure, but we won't be needing tents.
Perfect. OK, the spot is now booked. Just check in at the campgrounds administration office and make your payment of £35 when you arrive.
Oh, could you give me...
That is the end of section 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Section 4. You will hear a student presentation about chemicals called dioxins. First, you have some time to read through questions 11 to 20. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 20.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to present my research project about dioxins today. First, I'd like to offer a short explanation as to why I chose dioxins as my presentation topic. In the United States, we hear a lot about dioxins, but not everybody understands where they come from or why they are harmful. I'd like to explain those two topics first, and then talk a little bit about how to avoid exposure to these harmful chemicals and what we can do to decrease the presence of dioxins in our land, air, and even food. First of all, what are dioxins? Well, they are considered one of the dirty dozen, which is a group of organic pollutants that are extremely dangerous to nature and habitats. Researchers have identified about 419 different types of dioxin compounds in existence, but only about 30 of those are thought to contain a significant amount of toxicity. Let's now discuss where they come from. Dioxins are produced from either industrial processes or natural processes. For instance, they form during the production of herbicides and pesticides sprayed on the ground. They are also formed during combustion activities such as trash burning. Garbage plays a large part in the creation of dioxins. The natural processes that would create dioxins include volcanic explosions and large forest fires. Now, how are we exposed to dioxins? What most people don't know is that dioxins are found worldwide, and we've all been exposed to them. The highest levels of dioxins are found in soil, sediments, dairy products, meat, and fish. In fact, over 90% of human exposure to dioxin is through food or the ingredients in our food, the vast majority. This is because dioxins accumulate in the fatty tissue of animals that are later sold as food to humans. For example, a study in Belgium from 1999 found high levels of dioxins in poultry and eggs, which was traced back to animal feed in particular locations. Furthermore, there are also subgroups of people that are particularly susceptible to dioxin exposure from other sources besides food. In particular, people who work at incineration plants or hazardous waste sites are definitely exposed to an abnormally high amount of dioxins. Next, let's look at some of the negative health effects of dioxins. As I already said, dioxins are extremely toxic. However, the severity of health damage depends on the length of exposure to them. Short-term exposure to extremely high levels of dioxins can affect liver functions, and this can result in lots of medical issues later in life. Long-term exposure can result in an impaired nervous system and impaired reproductive functions. Dioxins may also cause cancer in humans as well as animals. Studies have also shown that people exposed to high amounts of dioxins have an increased risk of diabetes and heart disease. For example, a recent study was conducted in Taiwan on a group of people that had been exposed to dioxins released from manufacturing processes in a nearby factory. Findings showed that the prevalence of diabetes in this group was much higher than the national average. And another group of researchers has found that exposure to dioxins can be a major cause for heart disease. Several other medical institutions have also found definitive evidence that those exposed to dioxins have a much higher risk of developing heart disease in the future. So how do we reduce our exposure to harmful amounts of dioxins? Unfortunately, there's not a lot we can do on our own. Health professionals claim that small efforts can go a long way. Removing excess fat from meat and cutting out dairy from your diet will significantly decrease the amount of dioxins you consume through food. In addition, it is good to limit the consumption of fish from certain areas of the world. Obviously, avoiding exposure to toxic chemicals from factories and other sources is helpful as well. Finally, how do we prevent the production of more dioxins? Basically, the public can only influence this moderately. So it's really up to governments to change regulations for the production of food. Today, there are regulations for toxic waste disposal, but there is still a lot of work to do. Hopefully, in the future, dioxins will be a thing of the past. So, if any of you have questions regarding the presentation, I would be glad to.
That is the end of section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Chapter 3. Table completion. Example.
Next, the Lawson Amusement Park will be opening this October. The ride section will feature a 100-metre high roller coaster. You can buy the tickets in the local leisure centre. The tickets for senior citizens are £20, which is half the price of standard tickets. Students will also get £10 off. The zoo will feature local flora and fauna and is free for all visitors. You can also purchase food, snacks and souvenirs, or even bring your own meals and visit the park's picnic area.
Hackers practice.
딕테이션 연습.
1.
My license plate number is PD06SMR. My license plate number is PD06SMR.
2.
The group will meet at Hyacinth Street, HYACINTH. The group will meet at Hyacinth Street, HYACINTH.
3.
The first session is on May 29th. The first session is on May 29th.
4.
The hotel has a beach yoga class every morning. The hotel has a beach yoga class every morning.
5.
Our healthcare centre has regular yoga and Pilates classes which you can join. Our healthcare centre has regular yoga and Pilates classes which you can join.
6.
Excessive carbohydrate intake and minimal physical exercise might lead to heart disease. Excessive carbohydrate intake and minimal physical exercise might lead to heart disease.
7.
Customers can submit personalized complaints by making a post on an online forum. Customers can submit personalized complaints by making a post on an online forum.
8.
Attendees of the play are entitled to a complimentary meal at our canteen for which they will get a coupon with their tickets. Attendees of the play are entitled to a complimentary meal at our canteen for which they will get a coupon with their tickets.
9.
There are places to park in front of the hospital and behind the gym. There are places to park in front of the hospital and behind the gym.
10.
I'm sorry, but we only take payments from credit cards at this time. I'm sorry, but we only take payments from credit cards at this time.
11.
You should change the order of the chapters so as not to confuse readers. You should change the order of the chapters so as not to confuse readers.
We will set off in the early morning on our 2-kilometre walk through the mountains. We will set off in the early morning on our 2-kilometre walk through the mountains.
13.
There will be an opportunity to try some traditional Japanese crafts, including pottery and flower arranging at the heritage site. There will be an opportunity to try some traditional Japanese crafts, including pottery and flower arranging at the heritage site.
14.
Germany's invasion of Belgium in 1914 marks the true beginning of World War I. Germany's invasion of Belgium in 1914 marks the true beginning of World War I.
15.
The optimization of the supply chain has had a hugely positive effect on efficiency, increasing our export capacity by 10.5%. The optimization of the supply chain has had a hugely positive effect on efficiency, increasing our export capacity by 10.5%.
16.
This pass includes entry to the museum and viewing of an informative movie playing today. This pass includes entry to the museum and viewing of an informative movie playing today.
유형 연습.
Section 1. You will hear a university representative speaking with an international student about accommodation. First, you have some time to read through questions 1 to 4. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 4.
Good morning. University Housing Services Office. What can I help you with?
Hi, I'm interested in getting some information about a room in university halls, such as availability, cost, and so on.
Sure. Are you a full-time student here?
I am, yes. I'm actually on an exchange program from the United States. I would like to be close to campus, so I think staying in student halls would be perfect.
I have some options for you then. But before we talk about that, may I ask for your name and contact number?
Stephanie Mills. My mobile number is 543-2928.
Thanks, Stephanie. So let's talk about some of your preferences for the halls. First of all, how long would you like to stay for?
Just for 6 months. I'll be returning to the United States for the summer holiday.
So, one option I found is on Canton Road. It's a single room on the second floor of Westgate House, which used to be a shared room, so is quite big. It is fully furnished and has a double bed and a desk. That costs £120 per week and is 10 minutes walk from campus, just past the train station.
Does that include meals?
No, it doesn't, I'm afraid. There is a shared kitchen space where you can cook your own food. The toilets are also shared, but there is a private sink in your room.
That's a little bit expensive for me then. Are there any other options?
Let me see. Well, there is one space on Hilliard Street.
Sorry, how do you spell that street?
Hillyard Street, Hillyard. That is a shared room and strand house.
Thanks. And how much is that?
That is £130 a week, but does include breakfast and lunch on weekdays. There is a canteen in the building which is open to all residents. The room has a desk and a bed, only a single. It does include an ensuite toilet though, which you share with your roommate.
That sounds okay. I don't mind sharing. How far is that from campus?
It's a bit further, about 20 minutes by foot, so it would be hard to walk to school. Although if you have a bike, it would take about 10 minutes. There is a bike shed next to the halls. Or there is a bus which takes about 5 minutes, so if you're running late, you can jump on that.
That sounds great. I will probably cycle most days. When can I move in?
As soon as you're ready. Just come down to the office first and we'll sort out the relevant paperwork.
Wonderful. I'll be there later today. Thanks for your help.
No problem. See you later.
Okay, bye.
Goodbye.
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 1. You will hear a telephone conversation between a sales agent for a ticketing office and a customer. First, you have some time to read through questions 5 to 8. Now listen carefully and answer questions 5 to 8.
Hello, this is the Leeds Arts Centre ticketing office. This is Carol McIntyre speaking. How may I assist you today?
Yes, I'd like to inquire if you have any performances occurring at your facility in the month of October.
Do you have a particular type of performance in mind that you want to see?
I'm mostly fond of orchestra performances and ballets.
Well, we have a performance from the Adelberg Symphony Orchestra.
Could you spell the name of the orchestra? I just want to jot it down.
Certainly. It's Adelburgh. And the performance is next Thursday, October the 3rd.
Thank you.
Are you interested in purchasing tickets for that performance?
I'm not sure. What time does it start, and what are the ticket prices?
That performance begins at 7 p.m. There are only tickets remaining in the second-level balconies backmost rows. It's quite comfortable, certainly better than the back row seats on the first level. Those are priced at £50 per ticket.
I'd rather be a bit closer to the stage, actually. What about ballets in October?
Oh, there will be a splendid ballet rendition of Romeo and Juliet given by the Royal Ballet Company. I highly recommend that one. That show is on the Monday of the last week of October.
That sounds divine. That's October 30th, right?
Actually, that's October 31st.
Okay. Which section is closest to the stage?
That would be the central section, where tickets are £200 per person. Unfortunately, those tickets are sold out. But I'd recommend the mezzanine, as it's the next nearest section to the stage.
And how much are those tickets?
They are £120 each. Oh, and I forgot to ask about one important thing. Would you happen to be a resident of Leeds?
I am.
Then you should also note that we host several events especially for residents throughout the year, including performances by acclaimed opera singer Claudia Vento and the Leeds Boys Choir on the December 12th. We have all types of seats available for those. And we have less expensive drinks on those nights, and the performances are free of charge.
Oh, wonderful. But I still need to ask my friend if the ticket prices for the October ballot sound affordable for her. Can I call you back later to buy the tickets?
Absolutely. Our office is open daily from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Great. Thanks for your help. Goodbye.
Bye.
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 3. You will hear two business students talking to their tutor about a research project on flexible work policies. First, you have some time to read through questions 9 to 13. Now listen carefully and answer questions 9 to 13.
I'm interested in hearing how your research on alternative workplace policies is going, Aiko and Gary. The last time we talked, you said you were going to focus on flex place and flex time?
Yes, that's right.
So, what progress have you made?
Well, I looked through some case studies I found in the library showing that flex time policies, which basically let employees decide what hours they work, allow for less fatigue and illness. In addition, motivation among company workers was increased, and people were more enthusiastic about their work.
What conclusion did the studies reach?
It seems flex time is really great for employees, actually. They can adapt their work hours to public transportation schedules and road traffic, and even more importantly, they have opportunities to spend more time with their children. So, their work-life balance is greatly improved. I've discovered that, with flex time, parents don't have to give up their jobs to raise their kids. This has been a great advantage for mothers and fathers with very young children.
That's all good. You should research more about how flex time has benefited employers, since the project must cover that as well. I think you have enough material on employees' viewpoints. Could you add some details about that to your analysis?
Absolutely. And I'll read through some other studies I found proving that flex-time employees make fewer errors and are more effective.
Great. Now, Aiko, to come back to you, have you found any similar results with regard to FlexPlace?
Well, there aren't as many case studies available about FlexPlace, and it's a more recent phenomenon. I thought FlexPlace would be inconvenient for workers, but I found out that increases in both wireless internet access and laptop affordability have made working from different locations more practical.
Sure, but I want you to look a bit more deeply into FlexPlace than that. I know there are several companies in London offering FlexPlace programs. Since you don't have many previously conducted company studies to rely on, how about interviewing some of their recruitment staff?
Oh, all right. That's an excellent idea. I'll do some research online and see what companies I can find.
Sounds good. And can you both send me a draft of your research report this week? Then let's meet again next Wednesday so I can give you some additional feedback on your findings.
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 4. You will hear a talk given by a professor about the history of mines in Australia. First, you have some time to read through questions 14 to 19. Now listen carefully and answer questions 14 to 19.
Today, I'd like to explore a topic that is of increasing importance to the economy here in Australia, mining. I'll start by getting into how mining developed and look at how it's progressed into the multi-billion-dollar industry it is now. In the late 1700s, as you know, Australia was first colonized by the British, and life here was rough at first. There was no industry on the continent and very little in the way of agricultural production. Then, in the mid-1800s, everything changed. Silver was the first precious metal discovered, and a few years later, lead deposits were found. In 1851, the real boom began because gold was found in New South Wales and Victoria. A gold rush immediately followed, which caused the Australian population to triple within a decade, and the country's economic fortunes would rely heavily on the mining industry thenceforth. The mining boom of the 1900s, the one we're still currently experiencing, is a direct result of exploration in the Pilbara, a region in Western Australia. The resources in that area were first accessed by pioneering businessman Lang Hancock during the early 1950s. Hancock founded a company named Hancock Prospecting, which is now one of the major mining corporations in the Pilbara. The main resource companies were mining in Pilbara was iron ore, and that's significant because that iron ore was used in the production of steel, which is important for buildings, cars, roads, railways, and ships. At first, the vast majority of Australia's iron exports went to the west. But in the 1990s, there was a shift in international trade. China began opening up its economy and becoming more capitalist, and its rapid industrial and manufacturing growth has created a huge demand for raw materials like iron. From the early 2000s onwards, it became the biggest importer of Australian iron in the world. In fact, over the first 10 years of the millennium, China's demand grew so much that 70% of Australia's iron ore is now sent there. Now, before I talk about some of the other major industries integral to the Australian economy, let's look closer at the major mining companies that are found here.
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Hackers test.
Section 4. You will hear a talk given by a professor in a class about food safety. First, you have some time to read through questions 1 to 10. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 10.
Last time we discussed foodborne diseases and why they spread, and today we'll delve more deeply into the ways that food safety has and can continue to be strengthened. You'll all remember that food can act as a place for bacteria to duplicate in, which often leads to food poisoning. But theoretically speaking, it's completely possible to prevent food poisoning. Accordingly, the World Health Organization, or the WHO, has set forth 5 standards that it recommends for the hygienic management of food products worldwide. The first standard is the prevention of food contamination by human, pet, or pest-related bacteria. For many restaurants, this has been as simple as making sure sanitation and pest extermination standards are up to date. And it also means ensuring that staff follow health guidelines to avoid any accidental bacterial contamination of food. The second standard is the separation of raw and cooked foods. E. coli and Salmonella are frequently referenced by food scientists as some of the most harmful bacteria living in animal-produced raw foods. Moreover, parasites, worms and mold can be found in many fish and dairy products. To stop cross-contamination from these nasty and potential infectious bugs, food storage standards are constantly evaluated by grocery stores and dining establishments across the globe. The third standard addresses the adequate times and temperatures for cooking food products. Dr. Darwin Sun, a professor at the University of Dublin, has established the widely accepted claim that the majority of foodborne bacteria die when food reaches an internal temperature of about 60 degrees centigrade. Food, especially animal products that remain at temperatures between 5 and 50 degrees centigrade, are within what the WHO considers the danger zone, where the number of foodborne bacteria can double in as little as 20 minutes. So that brings me to the fourth standard, which is the storage of food at proper temperatures. The United States Department of Agriculture, or USDA, has defined proper food storage guidelines, including the storage of food products at temperatures of 30 degrees centigrade or higher for no longer than 1 hour. Additionally, industrial refrigerators at restaurants undergo inspections twice annually in most countries to ensure proper storage temperatures. The WHO's final food safety standard deals with the use of safe water at food-related establishments. There have been significant developments in the design of filtration systems for drinkable water, and new systems have been put in place in many countries. This has led to overall water quality improving worldwide by nearly 10% since 2014. Unfortunately, however, lesser developed countries still face many difficulties with access to safe water sources. Further problems also lie in the inconsistent health and safety standards for each country with relation to water filtering and food production. That now leads me to the next part of my talk, which is about the effectiveness of food safety practices in our own country. Here in the UK, the Food Standards Agency oversees food safety and hygiene. In 2006, food sanitation legislation was modified and new mandates were passed. Restaurants nationwide now work toward meeting these updated regulations, which cover many elements of hygiene. Still, there is a lot of room for improvement. For example, although many restaurants offer dietary details on their menus regarding food allergies, intolerance issues, or other dietary restrictions, it isn't mandatory. More transparency in general, so that food retailers and restaurants make it clear how much of each thing they are using in their products, is very important. While restaurants have to list all ingredients used, they are not yet required to list other specific amounts of, well, things like fat, sugar, and sodium content. Once they do, this will make customers aware of what they are eating so that they can make their own informed decisions about health and safety. We should also have more information about the number of calories in each serving as well, both for customers and inspectors. Since such massive amounts of food are being shipped around the world, it's challenging to guarantee food safety even with regular inspections, so having more information is important. For our next class, we'll look at the globalized food chain in more detail, but for now, I'll respond to your questions about today's lecture.
That is the end of section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Chapter 4. Sentence, Summary, Flowchart, Diagram, Completion. Example.
Firstly, CO2 emissions are the main cause of climate change in the Arctic. Changes to weather and temperature have a profound effect. They can destroy habitats, which has a devastating impact on local wildlife. The only way to halt or reverse these effects on the Arctic is by reducing the amount of CO2 we put into the atmosphere.
Hackers practice.
딕테이션 연습.
1.
We have an outdoor picnic area which includes barbecue facilities. We have an outdoor picnic area which includes barbecue facilities.
2.
The price for the tour is $40 and adding lunch will be $20 extra. The price for the tour is $40 and adding lunch will be $20 extra.
3.
The view of Tower Bridge from the river is great. The view of Tower Bridge from the river is great.
4.
The train will arrive at 3:30 p.m. and our bus is at 4 p.m. The train will arrive at 3:30 p.m. and our bus is at 4 p.m.
5.
You might want to incorporate survey results from educational studies in your report. You might want to incorporate survey results from educational studies in your report.
6.
In ego depletion, an individual exercises self-control to suppress desires. In ego depletion, an individual exercises self-control to suppress desires.
7.
Installing solar panels on your house can decrease your electricity bills by more than half. Installing solar panels on your house can decrease your electricity bills by more than half.
8.
A successful company must analyze its performance as often as possible to make adjustments for the future. A successful company must analyze its performance as often as possible to make adjustments for the future.
9.
The Maori people performed dances to the rhythmic movements of a ball on string. The Maori people performed dances to the rhythmic movements of a ball on string.
10.
The cylinders on the machine roll the recycled materials into a sheet. The cylinders on the machine roll the recycled materials into a sheet.
11.
On average, women in the United States earn 78.6% of what men do. On average, women in the United States earn 78.6% of what men do.
12.
The clownfish and the sea anemone help one another with basic survival needs. The clownfish and the sea anemone help one another with basic survival needs.
13.
8 hours of sleep per night can improve the brain's retention of memory. 8 hours of sleep per night can improve the brain's retention of memory.
14.
The Central Plateau is a flat stretch covering northern Mexico. The Central Plateau is a flat stretch covering northern Mexico.
"15.
The Socratic method is a way of facilitating cooperative communication among students and teachers. The Socratic method is a way of facilitating cooperative communication among students and teachers.
"16.
The geologist Charles Lyell was a pioneer in the study of the causes of earthquakes, who has shaped our contemporary view of geology. The geologist Charles Lyell was a pioneer in the study of the causes of earthquakes, who has shaped our contemporary view of geology.
유형 연습.
Section 2. You will hear a talk by an organization representative at a meeting about a charity event. First, you have some time to read through questions 1 to 4. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 4.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for coming to this Anne-Marie Charity member meeting. I'm so pleased to see so many members here tonight, and I always appreciate your generosity, compassion, and concern. I know you are eager to hear about our institution's progress. Our annual charity bicycle tour raises money for medical research at the London Children's Hospital. Each year, a group of generous individuals dedicates 10 days to cycling around England to raise both funds and awareness. And might I say that it's a fun time as well. Now, I know some of you are interested in participating and want to know how you can get involved. Well, it is fairly easy. First, you must register for the event, which you can do on the charity's website. You don't even have to visit our office. After that, you'll be asked to sign a form on which you will give us an estimate of how much money you plan to raise. We recommend our participants attempt to raise a minimum of £3,000, but we certainly encourage you to raise more than that. Next, you will need to find sponsors who agree to donate a predetermined amount of money to you should you finish the tour. It's always a good idea to start with friends and family first, but many participants have also raised funds from local businesses. And then you have to show up for the tour on June 12th at 6 a.m. with your bicycle, gear and equipment. You don't have to worry about bringing any documents, although something proving your identity might be helpful. I'll hand out a leaflet that will tell you everything you need to know. And you will also be given a number to pin onto the back of your shirt. This will allow us to track who successfully finishes. And once you've completed the tour, collect the donations from your various sponsors and give them to us by June 26th. Finally, the charity will provide you with receipts by the end of June. You can give these to people who ask for them for tax purposes. It's mid-March now, so that means you have plenty of time to find sponsors. And we do offer support in the way of informational brochures, and of course, we will always be here to answer your questions or respond to your concerns. Now, before we go on to the next topic of discussion, are there any questions about this year's charity tour?
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 3. You will hear a conversation between a tutor and a graduate student at the College of Education. First, you have some time to read through questions 5 to 8. Now listen carefully and answer questions 5 to 8.
Hi, Sarah. Come on in. You said you wanted to discuss the research project you're working on. You know, the one on children's outdoor play.
Yes. It's going well. I've put together a plan and have set myself some research goals.
Great. What are they?
Well, I mostly want to find out what the benefits of outdoor play are. Then, I'd like to examine why it has decreased in recent years.
That sounds good. Do you have evidence for the claim that children's play has decreased?
I do. I have government statistics showing that playgrounds are used 25% less often than they were a decade ago.
Okay, it sounds like you have some good research there.
Thanks. But the issue I'm having is how to find research on why children's outdoor play has decreased. There isn't much out there. What do you suggest?
Well, the best thing to do is to conduct a survey of your own. You can ask parents with children at local schools to answer it. I can put you in touch with a few head teachers who could help.
Great. I'll start thinking about some questions.
Yes, that will be the first step. Try and test out a few hypotheses through your survey. So, have you got any ideas for why outdoor play is decreasing?
I have. I think that the increasing amount of media aimed at children, including television, apps, online games and so on, has something to do with it. And then, other things, like children being expected to devote more time to intense academic work after school could be factors. Also, there may be fewer playgrounds or green spaces for children to use.
Those all sound like plausible reasons. I think parents may also have an effect on this issue.
That could be. Perhaps parents are less willing to let children play alone outside than they once were.
Yes, that may be true.
Okay, so for the first step, I think I should start writing the survey.
Yes, you can go ahead and begin that. When you're done, send it to me and I'll give you some feedback. And after that, we can get in touch with some teachers that may be able to circulate it. The teachers would be interested in seeing what you...
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 3. You will hear a conversation between two students about a biology assignment. First, you have some time to read through questions 9 to 13. Now listen carefully and answer questions 9 to 13.
Natalie, have you finished your outline for the report we've been assigned? You know, the one about the biology field trip to Hawthorne Oceanic Research Facility.
Hi, Greg. I'm still thinking about what topic to focus on. I thought maybe the subject of symbiosis.
Oh, yes. I remember that the chapter about it in our textbook was really fascinating, particularly the symbiotic relationships involving cleaner fish, like the wrasse fish we studied.
And there were moray eels at the Hawthorne facilities, as well as wrasse fish. I can describe in detail the cleaning process between those two species.
What did that involve again?
Well, the moray eels and wrasse fish were in the same tank living on a reef. The wrasse fish gathered inside the reef and hung around until other fish showed up.
Ah, I remember. The eels went there to be cleaned.
Yes, Mr. Horace explained that.
He did. He said they usually gather together near the cleaning station.
Yeah, and then the wrasse fish would approach the moray eels there while they were resting. And that's when they would start the cleaning process.
Right, I remember. First they clean up the eel's gills by eating parasites and bacteria.
Yes, they actually eat that stuff right off the eels. And they pick away the dead scales as well.
Actually, you might also want to mention that the eels really rely on the fish because the parasites they eat are quite dangerous.
Uh-huh.
Also, at the end, the moray eels would often open their mouths and let the wrasse fish swim inside to clean as well. I thought it was really fascinating to see that part of the process.
Now, all I have to do is come up with some other examples of symbiotic relationships.
Check out the list of references on Mr. Horace's course outline. I'm sure you can find something suitable on it.
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 3. You will hear a conversation between a tutor and a student about a university course. First, you have some time to read through questions 14 to 17. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 14 to 17.
Hi, I've come to ask a few questions about the literature degree you offer.
Oh, yes. Well, I'm a tutor for undergraduate literature students here at Southampton University. My name is Joanna. Could you give me your name?
My name's Tom Atkins. I'm hoping to enroll in a literature program this coming term.
Oh, really? Are you working at the moment?
I am currently working part-time at a publishing company as an editing administrator for a monthly journal, but I work from home for only about 10 hours per week, so I have time to study, and I am particularly interested in the comparative literature course, especially the elements related to post-colonial literature. I studied that a bit in a previous literature class I took, and am curious to learn more.
That's my field of study too. So, are you interested in studying full-time?
Yes, I am. And I'd like to know a bit more about the other requirements for the course, how long it will take, and what are the required courses and alternative courses.
Of course. The degree takes 3 years to complete. In the first year, there are 3 modules you have to take, which are introductory courses in literature and literary theory, in addition to 1 optional module within the department.
What are the subjects for the optional modules?
They change every year, but past modules have been on topics like Indian literature, basically thematic courses.
And I can only take 1 optional module?
You won't have room in your schedule for any more during the first year, unfortunately. But in the second year, you have only 1 compulsory module and can take 3 optional ones. The second year's modules are much more specific, and they will allow you to focus your studies before the dissertation the following year. And then, in your third year, the modules will help determine the kind of research you do for your dissertation.
That's very helpful, actually. Also, I'm wondering about...
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 4. You will hear part of a lecture about people living near active volcanoes. First, you have some time to read through questions 18 to 21. Now listen carefully and answer questions 18 to 21.
All right now, since we are talking this week about volcanoes, I thought it might be interesting to step away a bit from the geological analysis and look at what it would be like to live near an active volcano. It seems quite strange that someone would choose to live near something that could erupt at any time, right? Well, there are actually some advantages to building a home near a volcano, and these advantages reveal a lot about how volcanoes impact the local environment. One benefit of living near a volcano is that you have access to unlimited geothermal energy. Geothermal energy, as you may know, is energy that is generated and stored in the earth. Heat that naturally occurs in the Earth's crust can be converted into energy that can be used for electricity. This energy is harnessed by utilizing the underground steam that has been heated by the Earth's magma. This steam drives turbines in geothermal power stations to produce electricity. It's a clean and sustainable form of energy, so countries with a lot of volcanoes take advantage of this. Look at, for example, Iceland. About 66% of its energy comes from these steam-powered turbines. In fact, only 0.1% of all energy in the nation comes from fossil fuels. So not only can we harness energy from volcanoes, but there's also some of the most fertile soil in the world around volcanoes. You see, when a volcano erupts, it throws out ash. At first, that ash can do some damage to nearby flora, fauna, and humans as well. But in the long term, the ash layer that accumulates on the Earth's surface is converted into a very rich soil because the ash is loaded with minerals. So people who live off the land near volcanoes have abundant agricultural production, prompting them to return even after serious eruptions. And lastly, volcanoes help to create lots of tourism. Think about Hawaii. What is on the top of the list of attractions to do while on the islands? That's right, visiting a volcano. And there are often other natural wonders around that are created by volcanoes. Hot springs, geysers, and interesting rock formations, just to name a few. These tourists need places to stay and eat, and tour guides to show them around. And have I mentioned that tourists love to shop? So living near a volcano practically guarantees that you'll be able to find employment. That's why there are generally large populations living in close.
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 4. You will hear a student giving a presentation on composting. First, you have some time to read through questions 22 to 25. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 22 to 25.
Hello everyone, the topic that I chose to present on today is the composting of organic trash materials. Now, many of us probably place our food waste in bins, so it can be picked up and brought to a waste management facility. In a survey that was conducted in my neighborhood, over 90% of residents do this, but only about 20% of them know what happens to their waste at the facility. So, what I'll show you all today is a prototype miniaturized version of the machines used to compost organic materials at waste management facilities. Now, here it is, and I can assure you that it's delightfully simple to use. The top of the device acts very similarly to a recycling bin. The food waste is placed in this bin before it is processed. Once this lever on the side is pulled, the materials being processed then proceed into another chamber shaped like a drum, which rotates for about 20 minutes for each cycle. This chamber churns the waste, breaking the organic materials down into a consistent size and shape. After that, the organic materials that have been broken up are kept in the drum for 6 weeks. During this time, the materials are exposed to oxygen, which reacts with organic components such as carbon, protein, nitrogen, and water molecules, as well as microorganisms. This is actually a chemical reaction taking place, which produces 2 byproducts, carbon dioxide and heat. When 6 weeks have passed, the finished compost is complete. By lifting this lid on the side here, biodegradable matter is expelled. This in turn can be safely added to the soil. This is convenient for home use, since the spillage can immediately be spread onto your lawn or garden or stored in a separate bin for later use. So as you can see, this composting machine is small and simple enough for everyday use. And I hope this is what it is used for in the near future. So now, I'll take any questions that you have for me.
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers. Hacker's Test.
Section 4. You will hear a part of a lecture given by a professor in a business class about a form of effective customer service. First, you have some time to read through questions 1 to 10. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 10.
Good afternoon, everyone. The last few lectures dealt with how important it is for businesses to maintain positive relationships with their customers. Today, we'll quickly review the case study you all read last week. Then we'll continue our discussion on the customer service chapter of our textbook about the service recovery paradox. First, what is service recovery paradox? Well, it is when a negative business situation can be used to create a positive opinion among consumers. Now, the company in the case study you've read about in the textbook ran into a major problem when the line of smartphones it manufactures was discovered to be largely defective immediately after its launch date. Nearly 1 million of the devices had touchscreens that were completely irresponsive. And how was the company able to turn this negative circumstance around? It promised to repair all of its defective phones for free. Additionally, it allowed any customer who purchased one of the devices to get a complimentary upgrade to the latest model when it came out the following year. Interestingly enough, consumer opinion of the company was better than it had ever been after the launch of the defective line. This swing in consumer opinion from negative to positive due to a company's efforts following a service failure is a good example of the service recovery paradox. Some studies even show that overall customer loyalty to a company increases after a negative event that is addressed successfully. The main point here is that a good business knows that an issue with a service or a product is a great opportunity to increase customer loyalty. There's significant empirical evidence showing that customers are generally more pleased when a company shows interest in accommodating their needs. This is mainly because customers believe the company has gone above and beyond to take care of them in a special way. And displaying concern is an important technique for any professional in the customer service field to use. Now that everyone seems to have a good understanding of what the service recovery paradox is, I want to look at the 4 factors that contribute to it. First of all, there's the customer's perceived value of the service or product recovery to consider. Customer needs are unique according to each individual's various desires, so different solutions will satisfy different clients. In our case study, it's important to keep in mind that the free upgrade to the new phone model was sufficient to some customers, but not to others. This is what is meant by a customer's perceived value of the recovery. Second, we can also look at customers' levels of dissatisfaction as every business endeavors to decrease them overall, and customer dissatisfaction, like a customer's perceived value of the service recovery, is always subjective. There isn't a definitive solution for any problem. In the case study, for example, the general opinion of the corporation's products immediately following the defective product launch was largely negative. This indicated a high level of customer dissatisfaction. But high ratings from consumers resulted after the service recovery. This revealed the company's exceptional ability to minimize the number of dissatisfied customers. Next, it's important to consider how much trust a customer places in a business. Although companies rely on growth and new consumers, it is brand loyalty that is a more powerful asset to any company, and sometimes a customer will be less displeased with a company if they have long been loyal to it. And lastly, there's the possibility of customers changing their service. What this means is that customers might switch to a competing business in the event of a service failure. Therefore, companies feel the need to give disappointed customers something to convince them to stay. In the case study, the offer of a complimentary upgrade may have been enough to cause them to remain with their existing company, rather than switch to a competing brand. However, the service recovery paradox isn't applicable in every situation. Customers are typically content when a one-time problem is taken care of. But poor quality products that fail repeatedly don't build consumer trust for companies. So, obviously, if customers continue to run into trouble with a company, satisfaction levels will be lower. However, having service recovery in place guarantees that problems will be taken care of when they arise. Accordingly, service recovery is an essential backup plan for customer service managers. And that's what I want to emphasize for today's lecture. All right, I'll take any questions that you might have at this time.
That is the end of section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers.